employment, education, everyday life / independence. Hope everybody can hear. You can put your questions into the question box. And Matthias, my colleague, is on here with me, and we'll do our best to answer questions throughout the webinar, so don't hesitate. Just to let you know, you're muted during the session, so we would prefer if you would use the question box. And also to let you know that today's presentation will be recorded. We'll put it on our site at alphaplus.ca, so you can listen to it again should you choose. So this is me, or at least an earlier version of me. My name is Maria Moriarty. I've worked at Alpha Plus for quite a long time. Now I primarily work as a tech coach, working with programs to support them in integration and effective use of technology. And I also do presentations like this one on behalf of Alpha Plus. So this is what we're going to, I guess I'd like to say we're going to think about these things because we haven't finished thinking about them, and I think we're always thinking about them. When I look at digital skills, some working definitions of digital skills are current understandings. To think about digital skills for employment, for further education, and for everyday life independence. And also to think about how we build those digital skills. And for me, and I think for many people, a critical part of building digital skills is to work on information literacy skills. And then I'm going to share with you a Google site which will have sets of resources, that online learning activities, online practice activities that you can review and use with your students as you find them useful and appropriate. So first I need to hide this so I can actually read my screen. Oops, sorry. Here we go. So working definitions of digital skills. There are many of them. They're constantly in development and being rethought. And I think we have to remember that our understandings of what digital skills are and what they mean is a constant work in progress. It's constantly shifting, changing, because new tools, new ideas come online all the time. And the digital landscape in which we all live is constantly shifting, changing, shaping, and being reshaped. So these are working definitions. The first one I wanted to share with you is from a colleague of mine at Alpha Plus, Guylaine Vinette. And as she was thinking about this, and we've talked about this quite a lot, in her work with programs, what she has identified are three skill areas. The first is, what she calls hard skills, the ability to use specific tools and interfaces. The second are critical thinking skills, the ability to understand the capacity or the power and the risks associated with using a tool. And thirdly, the ability to innovate. That is our confidence in using technology, in believing that we can use technology, and in problem solving using technology. Because we're constantly confronted with new interfaces and new tools. So what can we draw on which will help us to apply what we already know and have experienced in new settings or according to new demands? Around the world, educators and policymakers have come up with various digital skills frameworks, and I wanted to share a couple of them with you, just to give us some context. In the United Kingdom, there is a digital skills framework, and by the way, all of these documents that I've drawn on to come up with these very brief outlines of digital skills frameworks, you will find in the set of resources that I will share with you. The digital skills framework in the United Kingdom looks at the areas of information, that is, finding information, using information, communicating, using digital technologies to communicate. Transacting, by which they mean things like online shopping and banking. And then problem solving, how we operate within the digital environment to solve problems either using technology or created by technology. And then creating, that is developing our own content online and in the digital environment. ISTE in the United States, I think it's called the International Society for Technology and Education. They're quite influential in our thinking about digital technology, although the focus of their work is the K-12 sector, and they have developed sets of standards both for students and for educators. And they update these standards on a regular basis. The latest update is 2016. And when they're thinking about standards for students, and remember this is in the K-12 sector, their focus is on enabling students to engage and thrive in a connected digital world. And so when we're working with ISTE standards, we have to remember the context, K-12 developmental education. Some of those standards, some of those definitions of digital skills are applicable to adults, but really their focus is on children and adolescents. The European Commission has been very active in the area of thinking about and documenting digital skills. And the European Commission in 2012 looks at the concept of digital competence. It's not only knowing how to use technology and skills in using technology, but it includes things like that confidence, that self-efficacy. It's being able to use technology in different situations, and that's what we're talking about today, really. What are the various areas in which we need to use digital skills and in which we need to be able to apply what we already know and have experienced. The EU, again, in 2015, came up with a set of elements within the overall concept of digital competence. And it's information processing, finding information, using information, communication, using digital technology to communicate, content creation, that's the creative piece, safety and security, which I think is another critical piece when we're thinking about digital competence, information literacy, digital skill, and then problem solving. Problem solving using digital technology, of course I have misspelled it here, I see that, excuse me. Problem solving, either using technology to solve problems or solving problems that technology has created for us. And then Canada, HRSDC, as one of the essential skills, has digital technology computer use. And this is their description. It's a narrower description, but it is the ability to use information and communications technology. And this skill, they say, is we use right across our work lives, our education lives, and our daily lives. Any questions? No? I just thought I would put this slide up because these are the ISTE standards for 2016. And I have a sense they're going to be quite influential in the way we think about digital skill. Again, just the caveat that these student standards are what are expected of students in the K-12 sector. What I wanted to focus on was within our context, within LBS, and the goal paths, the 5 goal paths. So I wanted to look at what we understand by digital skills on 3 of those goal paths: employment, further education, everyday life, and independence. Under further education, I have collapsed post-secondary and secondary school credit. And within employment, many of the digital skills, within further education, many of the digital skills that students are going to need to have are also applicable in the apprenticeship goal path, particularly in the academic piece, although there will be other digital skills that people in the apprenticeship path will need within their chosen profession. So why are we thinking about this in relation to employment? And I guess everybody knows the book Me, Kneel No More. I think it came out in 2012, which looked at changes in entry-level or low-skill jobs and the impact of technology on those jobs. It was specific to Canada, and the conclusion was that the ubiquity of technology now and technological advancements means that many jobs which did not require those skills now do. The ability to access and to use and to interpret digital information. Things like personal digital assistants, smartphones, various interfaces that people working in retail, in hospitality, in manufacturing need to be able to master. And again, I've given you the link to Me, Kneel No More, which is well worth reading. There's an organization in the United States called Grovo. They're a workplace training organization and a workplace development organization. And what they are looking at is supporting employers to provide their employees with essential skills for the workplace. And they have come up with 8 core digital skills that they believe are essential for the 21st century workforce. And they've laid them out here: working with documents, project collaboration and management, working in teams, for example, attention management, and I think this is something as a skill we probably all need to work on. Communication, using digital technology to communicate within the workplace and with customers, clients, vendors, etc. Digital etiquette, how we sort of behave online and in the digital world, not just in social media, but in terms of how we use email and texting and so on. Searching and researching, how do we find information online? How do we evaluate information online? Platform flexibility, and I think this is probably pretty key. If I am trapped in one particular platform, I only know how to do one thing, then I'm going to stumble when I'm faced with something similar but on another platform or using another interface. And then security and privacy and safety online. Those are all skills that we all need in our workplaces. And so again, I've included the link to this report or white paper that they produced in which they discuss these skills, and it makes for quite interesting reading. Back in 2014, the Higher Quality Education Council of Ontario did a research project where they went and looked at job postings on sites like monster.com and did an analysis of the requested soft skills that employers expect when people come into the workplace. And you will see that computer use, 74% of job postings included that as a required soft skill. I would almost say that at this point, employers don't even expect people to have these skills. They assume they have them. So that's quite a high number, I think, which alerts us to the fact that when we're working with students who have an employment goal, the development of digital skills and digital competence is pretty critical. Then I want to move on to post-secondary. If I decide that I want to go to college, I want to go to take courses in college, get a diploma, from the moment I make the decision to attend, I'm going to be functioning online because, and I did this little chart with a practitioner last year. We looked at, okay, I decide I want to go to college. The first thing I do is research colleges, which colleges offer the courses that I want to take. I'm going to do that online. Once I choose a college and a program, I'm going to apply online. if I'm going to apply for support, for financial support through OSAP, I'm going to do that online. Once I have successfully applied and have been admitted, I'm going to have to register online. If I don't find a college program within my area and I decide I'm going to have to do some distance education, that's going to happen online. So again, if my goal is post-secondary, it's pretty critical that I'm comfortable doing these things in a digital environment. When it comes to high school credit, if that's my goal, okay, I can go, if there's a local high school offering courses, I can enroll and I can go. The chances are I'm going to do some work online or in a digital environment. But if I need to go, if I need to do courses and I can't find them in my region, or I decide I want to go to the Independent Learning Center, I'm going to have to be comfortable online because my courses are going to be delivered online through the My ILC interface. Those are blended courses, a combination of online and in print. I'm going to have to use some printed material, but I'm going to have to do some work online. And my course materials are going to be, I'm going to read online, I'm going to have to do practice exercises, I may have to upload and download assignments, I may have to participate in web-based tutorials. So again, if I decide I want to go to the Independent Learning Center, that suits me, I'm going to have to be comfortable in an online environment. If I decide, no, I'm not going to the Independent Learning Center, I'm going to go to a online virtual high school. I can do this through the Ontario e-learning consortium. There are school boards across the province that provide credit courses for adults via e-learning. If I can't find a course or a credit that I need in my local high school, if I'm working or have other commitments and cannot attend physically, I can apply to go to a virtual high school. And again, I'm going to work online, so I'm going to need to be comfortable in that environment. This is just background about why these skills, why this digital competence is pretty critical as I move forward. In my everyday life, I need to be able to be comfortable in a digital environment. I'm going to need to find information, access government services. The Government of Ontario has very recently, within the last year, declared its intention and created a site to back that up, to provide government services online. I've included a link to that site, and you will see that I need to have a fairly high level of competence in order to access services from the Government of Ontario. As a resident and a citizen, those are services to which I'm entitled, services I need. I may need to bank online, and to do so, I need to be comfortable online. I need to have information literacy skills. I need to understand issues of safety and security. The same goes for social media. The same goes for shopping, or as we heard earlier from the UK framework, transacting. Probably in my everyday life, I need to be comfortable using a variety of digital devices, a phone, a computer, a laptop, perhaps a tablet. So these are areas where I'm going to need to feel competent so I can do the things I need to do. This is not something you don't know already, but I just want to give it as some background. A concept which I think is quite important in all of this is computer self-efficacy. That is my own belief in my ability to learn and to problem solve on the fly. As I progress in acquiring digital skills, I gain an increased sense of confidence and self-efficacy. That leads me perhaps to integrate more of those skills into my everyday life, which again helps me to progress in acquiring those skills, which again increases my self-confidence. So I like this circle because I think it shows me that it's not just about having the hard skills. Those are important, but by acquiring digital skills, I increase my chances of acquiring more, and I increase my chances of using digital technology effectively, whatever my goal is. Now, I want you to drill down a little bit and think about some of the digital skills that I'm going to need as I enter or progress in employment. If I want to do a job search, the majority of jobs are going to show up on the internet, so I'm going to have to know how to search the internet. I'm going to have to know how to distinguish between legitimate sites and legitimate job opportunities and those that are not. When I want to apply, I'm probably going to have to do it online. I'm going to need to know how to write a cover letter, probably need to know how to fill out a job application online. Once I get into my job, in the onboarding or initial training period, I may be asked to sit in front of a terminal, to read through manuals or instructions or directions, and then to answer questions about those. I'm going to need to know how to navigate that, and I'm going to have fairly good online reading comprehension. And this is something I've checked out myself, and I have to say most of this comes from our own knowledge at Alpha Plus based on the work that we do with programs, on some informal research speaking to practitioners and learners and employers and academic institutions. And the onboarding training piece became very clear to me when I went and talked to various employers like Home Depot and Tim Hortons and Lowe's, and asked, what happens when I get a job here? How do I receive my initial orientation and training? And I was told, you'll sit in front of a computer, you'll work your way through a series of modules, like in a learning management system. You'll get instructions, you'll get directions, you'll answer questions based on the texts you read. So that made me think this is a skill I'm really going to need to have if I'm going to successfully go through that initial training. Once I'm in the workplace, I may be asked to use a smartphone to get orders, to send orders, to communicate. I may have to use a point-of-sale computer if I'm in the hospitality industry, for example. I may be asked to use a tablet to take orders. And I may be confronted with a variety of computer interfaces. So I need to have that sense of competence so that I can use these devices or learn how to use these devices rather quickly. And then I may be asked to use email or text, for example, on my smartphone or computer or tablet to communicate within the workplace or to communicate with clients or with customers. If I decide that I am going to go on to further education, again, I'm going to apply online. I'm going to need to know how to navigate. I'm probably going to need to know how to fill out forms for my application and my registration. Probably going to be asked to open assignments from my instructors, to upload assignments to my instructors. I'm going to have to be able to read directions and instructions online. I'm going to have to know how to navigate college sites and school sites to find the information I need. I'm probably going to have to use a library. I'm going to have to use the internet and databases to find materials. So I'm going to have some search skills. I'm going to have information literacy to be able to distinguish between credible sites and those that are not so. I may have to use tablets. I may have to use many interfaces. So I'm not going to be able to learn how to use every interface there is, but what I need to have is a sense of my own computer self-efficacy. So when confronted with a new interface, I know what to look for, I know what should be there, I know how to navigate. I'm probably also going to be asked to use word processing to submit assignments, perhaps to attach them to emails. I may be asked to text. I may be in a class where they have, I can't remember what the name of it is now, where you answer questions throughout the lecture. So I'm going to have that computer self-efficacy, going to have some set of hard skills, but what I really need is to be able to work with new interfaces, new devices, new tools. In my everyday life, I need to be able to find information. There's hard, I mean, if you call a company, a service, a government department, inevitably, as you're waiting on voicemail to get through, or on hold to get through, you'll get a message saying all of this information is available online at our website. So I'm going to have to know how to do that, how to go and get that information. Accessing government services, I discussed that earlier, I mentioned it earlier. The Ontario government is determined to put all of their services online and to make them accessible to the population of Ontario. So I'm going to have to know how to navigate. I'm going to have to be able to read online and understand what I'm reading. And I'm going to have to be able to distinguish between good information and not so good information. If I want to bank online, I have to navigate the bank website. I have to be very conscious of privacy and security. The same with social media. I have to understand how to use social media like Facebook so that I am safe online, so that I maintain my privacy and my security. The same with shopping. I have to know how to navigate sites, and I have to be conscious of privacy and security. And again, I may have to use a variety of digital devices. Certainly I'm going to have to use different interfaces. You will notice that when you go to a bank machine, every single one of them is different. So I have to have some computer self-efficacy, so I know what to expect. Might not look the same as the one I used yesterday or last week, but it's essentially the same. So I know I need to know how to read that screen and understand how to proceed. Do I have any questions?
We have a comment from Susan.
Yes.
Damon.
Yes.
She said, we have a learner with very low literacy skills who had to do more than 13 hours of pre-employment online training for truck driving position, and that was brutal.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's becoming the norm. That people, because it's an expectation articulated by employers, but it's also an assumption that we all have these skills because we're all doing it all the time, and that's just not true. We need lots of exposure so that we can develop those skills. It can constitute a very, very high barrier if you haven't had exposure and experience in using digital technologies for whatever you want to do, particularly in the area of employment. And information literacy, and full disclosure here, this is one of my favorite topics. It's knowing when I need to look something up. It's knowing, and why I need it, where to find it. Once I find it, how do I know it's of any use at all? How to evaluate it? We're all very familiar now with the term fake news, but there's a lot of fake stuff on the internet, quite apart from fake news. So I need to be able to crank up that inner critic, which asks me, who created this site? Why did they create it? What is it for? When was it created? I need to have those skills so that I can quickly scan and discard what is not useful to me and trust that the information I'm using is credible because I have made a judgment based on my experience. And I have included in the list of resources some activities that you can do with students or you can introduce them to develop information literacy skills. Now, how do we acquire and build these skills? Practice, 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 exposure, exposure, exposure. I can tell you from now until 6 o'clock tonight how to build digital skills, but unless you get online and learn by trial and error, it doesn't really work. You have to learn by doing. I have tried to put together, based on work I've done with practitioners and learners in programs across the province, a small set of online practice activities tied to specific areas of skill that students are probably going to need, whatever their goal path. So we can go and look at those shortly. I also need computer self-efficacy, the belief that I can do it because I have done it. I have used Word, therefore I know what to expect when I need to write online. I have used the internet, so I know what it looks like and I know how to navigate it. I have explored those buttons at the top. I have used help on every site I've gone to, etc., etc. So I'm building a body of knowledge almost within myself, which is going to enable me to quickly learn or to use when I'm confronted with a new interface, a new tool. But mostly it's learning by doing. When I was going to grade school many years ago, they wanted to give us music lessons, but it was not, I didn't grow up in a very wealthy area, so nobody had pianos in their homes. So they gave us each a paper piano, which we were supposed to lay out on our dining room table and practice our notes. I mean, it was a nice idea. I never learned how to play piano on a paper piano because I never heard the sound. I need to use digital technology in order to be able to use digital technology. So I need as much exposure as I can get. And it's more effective if I learn purposefully. So if I learn the things or versions of the things that I'm going to need and wherever I'm going to go to. If I'm going to go to school, I need to practice some of those things purposefully in that context. If I'm going to go to work, it's helpful to me if I get some exposure and practice. It's not a play version or anything. I'm going to be asked, for example, to read something online in a training and then answer questions about it. The more of that I do, the better off I'm going to be. I'm going to have that better sense of computer self-efficacy. So do I have any more questions? Comments?
None at this point.
Okay. Where are we going now? Okay, bear with me. We're going to go to, I'm going to take you to the site that I created. I created a small Google site in which I put some digital resources that you can try with students and in your programs. I'll come back to the slideshow, but let me just go to that site now, so just bear with me for a minute while I mess up here. Okay, I'm going to close this for a minute. Here's my site. Digital skills for employment, education, everyday life. I'm giving you the link. Matthias is going to put it into the chat so you can grab it from there. What I did was, over the last couple of years in working with a range of programs, I put together some documents in which I tried to outline some general skill areas and then find some online learning activities and practice activities that practitioners can use with students in the literacy program to help students acquire the skills that they're going to need, to have exposure to some of the kinds of things they're going to encounter in the workplace or at school or indeed in everyday life. So I'll just quickly dash through this. This is the home page. Then I have included, whoops, the links to the working definitions that we talked about so that you have a sense of, so you can see where I took this information from. I promise I didn't make it up.
Maria?
And then I looked at, sorry?
Maria, sorry for interrupting.
Matthias?
I can see your PowerPoint, but not the, maybe you need to share the other screen.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Hang on a second. Okay, I'm going to stop that. And
share the web browser.
Go. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Oops. I'm going to have to close that right down. Okay, can you see my employment now?
Yes, thank you.
Good. So this is for, let me just go back. I included links to the working definitions. You just click on them. It'll take you to the sources I used when I was discussing the working definitions. For employment, I've included some online practice activities. This is a Word document. It's yours. It's completely editable. So to get on it, you just click here, and it should pop out. If you want to download it, you just use the download button. There's a little introduction. And then I took some of the skills or the purposes and came up with some online and practice activities. So for example, if you want to work with students to identify their digital skills and also to identify the areas where they need more support, you can use something like the North Star Digital Literacy Assessment or the Computer Use Self-Assessment, etc., etc. If I want to work with students around job search, around online search skills, then these activities can help you. If I want to help a student with a cover letter, I have included some examples there of things that you can use, etc. Now here's one, applications. Most of the time now we have to apply for jobs online, and there's a great site called jobapplications.ca where you can go on and find applications and you can practice filling them out. And then if I want to just crank up my digital skills in general, here are some sites that I can go to work with students on specific computer skills or generally just increasing my knowledge and my comfort level, etc., etc. So you can see I've done this. There's database searching. Say if I'm at Home Depot and they ask me to go look something up in a database, a product, I need to know how to do that. So we all use databases. We don't think of them as databases, but we do use them. So one that I've seen used very effectively is like go to the Canadian Tire site and buy a lawnmower. I mean, don't actually buy it, but look for it. That helps me to understand how to navigate a database, how to enter search terms so I can find what I want. Another great one is Canada 411. It's a lovely, clean interface. It helps me to find somebody's telephone number. In the course of doing that, I'm sharpening my skills in using information databases. Onboarding and training, which we talked about earlier, I find these activities to be quite helpful, BBC Skills-wise. They have a whole section on reading and understanding quizzes. So what I'm really doing when I'm in an onboarding situation is I'm reading something and then I'm taking a quiz on it. So if I have lots of opportunities to practice that skill, I should be pretty good at it, or at least comfortable when I'm confronted with it in a workplace. Another great one is Newsella. It's a daily newspaper. You can filter it so it's at various reading levels. There's a short article or a series of short articles, each one accompanied by a short quiz. So if I get lots of practice with my online reading comprehension, answering questions about that text, when I come to do it in a work situation, I've had that exposure, I'm probably going to be better at it. And then the one that I also love is called Discover Tourism. It's in Ontario. It's people talking about their jobs in the tourist industry, etc., etc. And so again, it's a great place to practice reading a text and then answering questions about it. So that's the employment one. And again, that's a Word document. You can edit it, chop it up, do whatever you want with it. Education, I've done the same thing. Of course, now it's going to let me down. Please don't let me down. Oh, no, there it is. looking at, for example, researching how do I research colleges and programs. I can do it on the Ontario Colleges site in the Find a Program section. Great practice. Again, the same with online high school. How do I apply to a college? There's a great FAQ on the Ontario Colleges site. OSAP has a great information portal. By doing this, I'm cranking up my computer self-efficacy. I'm getting familiar with how this thing works so that when I have to do it for real, when I really need to apply for college, I know how to navigate. I know how to find the piece of information that's critical to me. Using the library. Ontario community colleges have done a great job of pulling together information about libraries right across the system, how to use your college library, how to, each one will have a set of tutorials on using the library on their site, so I can go on and practice those long before I go to college. And again, my favorite practice databases, Canadian Tire, Canada Post is another great one, and Canada 411. I'm also going to have to do some online search as a college student, so these are good practice sites to go and learn how to do that and hone my skills. And then information literacy. GCF Learn Free has a great module on how to judge online information. Some colleges, for example, Algonquin, have tutorials on evaluating internet resources. These are very good if I want to practice that skill and get comfortable evaluating information whenever I'm on the internet. And then, of course, communications. There's all kinds of, GCF Learn has a lot of great stuff on how to use digital technology to communicate. Submitting assignments. Again, they have a very good module on uploading and downloading. On presentation skills. Here's my quizzes and surveys again. I can learn how to work with a quiz at BBC SkillsWise. I can use Newsella to practice my quiz answering skills, etc., etc. So that's the education one. Again, an editable document. I offer you this hoping that it'll be helpful to you. Just want you to make it your own. Everyday life and independence. It's going to open, I promise you. Okay. Yeah, finding information again, how to search. This is the Ontario government site that I was talking about. It's well worth taking a look. You'll see how rich that site is and how important it's going to become to me as a citizen and a resident to access government services. Banking, how do I use online banking? How do I use banking how do I bank using my smartphone, etc., etc. These are good practice activities. Social media, how do I learn social media? How do I, become more comfortable in using social media? GCF Learn, again, has a great module. Safe online shopping is another great activity. And then generally using mobile devices. If I get a new smartphone, I can go here and learn how to use it. Now, I wanted to just highlight, there's an organization in British Columbia called the Columbia Basin Adult Literacy Alliance. They've done a really good set of computer training modules. They're workbooks. They're very helpful in getting started in basic computers and well worth looking at. And of course, GCF Learn, the technology module, is very rich, constantly updated, designed for adult literacy students. So very, very helpful. So that's my education one. No, that's my everyday life one, isn't it? And then information literacy. Again, this is an editable Word document, so make it your own. just using search engines, how to use them, what they are. Everybody says, oh, go Google it, but there are other search engines, and so it's helpful to also try using those. Basic searching, how to search better, how to search more productively. There are lots and lots and lots of resources to help us to hone our search skills so that we get better search results. On the internet, we're often confronted with ads and sponsored links, and it can be quite challenging to distinguish between real search results and ads. So these are a set of activities and articles about ads and sponsored links, which are quite helpful in helping us to understand that we are being advertised to. There are things called native ads, which more and more and more look like search results, but how do we distinguish between those ads and actual search results? And then evaluating information. How do I know that the site or resource that I found is actually good? How do I know that it's legitimate, that it's credible? There's all kinds of things we can do, and here we have some information and activities to help us develop our information literacy skills, our skills in evaluating information, in knowing when something is credible and it's not. I need to know how to use information. This is particularly true if I end up in education. So as we're using the internet and finding information, it's good to develop our skill in citing that information, in knowing how to cite, and knowing why I need to cite. So again, the colleges have done an excellent job. I've chosen George Brown here just because I find that their work on citing resources and using information to be really, really easy to access and very, very helpful. So again, these are well worth looking at as students are preparing to go to college. And finally, I have included in this Google site links to everything I've talked about. I just want to be sure that I'm acknowledging the sources of the information I've shared with you. So you can find it all here, all of the frameworks, etc., the white paper from Grovo, the work from the Higher Education Quality Council, etc. So I will go back to the PowerPoint presentation, and Matthias, if you can put the link to the Google site into chat so people can grab it easily.
Yep, it's already there. And I have another comment from Susan who says, news in levels is great too. Those are daily news stories at 3 levels of difficulty with audio.
In Newsella. Yeah. Newsella is just the best thing ever because it's very high production values. The stories are taken from the media. The photographs are taken from the media, but you can decide with the student which reading level is the best, and you can read them at that level. I just find it the best site ever. So let me go to my slideshow. So this is the site that we just looked at. Matthias is going to put it in chat so you can grab it and use those resources as you wish. Again, as I say, those are Word documents. You just need to download them to your own computer, and then they're completely editable. So are there any questions or comments?
No, just a couple of questions about the slides. So the slides will be available afterwards on the on alphaplus.ca in the webinars archive, and there'll be also a link to the presentation to YouTube. Yeah,
so you'll be able to listen to it as many times as you want. Finally, we would very much appreciate your feedback. Can you put the SurveyMonkey link into chat, Matthias?
Already done, and I reposted the Google site link.
Okay, thank you very much. We would very much appreciate your feedback. It really helps us to understand, you know, not just what you think about a webinar like this, but how we can improve it, how we can make it more useful to you. So please take the time to fill out the survey. And we have a set of scheduled webinars coming up. So if you want to find out about those, you go to webinars.alphaplus.ca. For example, I'm going to log roll a bit now. I'm doing one next Tuesday on ProtoPage, which is a really nifty, simple to use tool so that you will be so well informed. It's an RSS reader that can also serve as your start page on your computer. I just find it an invaluable tool. So join me next week for a webinar on ProtoPage. I'm just going to stay on for a few more minutes. If there are questions, comments, please feel free.
Angela Parkin just says that it looks very useful, what you've provided.
Yeah, I hope so. Just to give you a bit of background, I work with programs, as we all do at Alpha Plus, programs right across the province as they work to integrate and use digital technology in their programs. So a lot of this comes out of my conversations with practitioners and learners, my observations when I'm working with programs, trying to, I wanted to give you an overview of the concept of digital skill and digital competence, but within the context of the work that you are doing in your programs, to try to make it as practical as possible. So I hope in those documents you will find some materials, some activities, some information that will support the work that you're doing.